very vocal since this whole thing came to be. Once again, you folks know that. I've been doing a lot of thinking about it since this whole thing has resurfaced once again in terms of rezoning. And although I see the merit in an R8 zoning versus what we had before, I have concerns with that in that I feel that there may be less control over R8 zoning than if we did a regulatory or a regulation type of zoning for commercial or for something other than R8. And by that I mean specifying location, areas to stay away from that are sensitive for ecological purposes. R8, the way I see it, chances are they probably will be coming in and be drilling wells. It's not going to be a huge development, I don't think, because of the restrictions in that area. There's no municipal water. Again, as you folks know, water is very critical, especially that end of town in the Ridge area. All of my neighbors, including myself, we've all had trouble with our wells from time to time. Any disturbance downhill from that is going to have an impact on the aquifer in some way or another. So if you have R8 and you have the zoning and you have a 30-some-odd acre parcel, depending on who's in there doing the excavating work, their engineers, you don't know how many units they could actually put in there, whether they sell them all one swoop, or if it's an individual basis where it's not an actual development, then it's, you know for sure that it's going to be wells. People are going to buy the lot, they're going to put a well in there. They may actually wind up doing more soil disturbance than if you had a more restrictive commercial development that went in there someplace. And I say that because I reflect back on the previous approvals were for like 7 acres, I think was the footprint. That's not going to be a 7-acre footprint if that whole thing is rezoned R8. It's going to be possibly a 25 to 30 acre footprint, depending on how big people want to have their lawns and where they want to put their homes. So I understand and I sympathize with the town board for the need to go through and rezone this from the LC. I mean, in the perfect world, this would be an LC right now, and have been always an advocate for that for many reasons. But because we know that can't be an LC, I'm trying to look at it from the standpoint of less of an impact environmentally, and obviously yes to myself because I'm going to be a neighbor to whatever goes in there. And I'm very cautious. If I was to say, yeah, I'm glad this is R8 now, I don't know that that's relatively such a great thing unless it was explored a little bit deeper and spelled out a little bit clearer in terms of what home went in and how and where. And I just don't know that you can do that. You folks can't make that happen. And that's pretty much all I got to say.
Okay, thanks very much, Marty. Anyone else?
Good evening, Stephanie Ferradino, appearing on behalf of the applicant Northway Saratoga Holdings LLC. Earlier today, you received a letter from me which articulated with a lot of particularities the reasons why my client is opposed to this. Just learning for the first time Mr. Hammond's position. He and I have walked the property, we've kind of discussed it. I was obviously surprised at what he had to say today, but there is a lot of truth to what he's saying, which is in a commercial zone, you have so many constraints and so many requirements and so many eyes on a particular project. So you've got your town planner weighing in, your town engineer, your town lawyer, board after board after board, and agencies are reviewing a project to look at how's the best use of this 36 plus or minus acres. And in the last go around, certainly there was significant scrutiny. The seeker process went through, it found no environmental impact. You were able to conserve a huge portion of that property because of the slopes, because of the wetlands, and because of the approvals themselves, which would have required a conservation restriction be placed on that property forever. So in essence, you're kind of accomplishing the two things that the town really wants: preservation of land and impact to the tax base. You're not able to do that in the same way if the property is zoned land conservation, and you're certainly, as Mr. Hammond pointed out, not able to do that in the same way with a residential development that could occur on this site. Absent the commercial use at 12 Hearn Road, the property contains little, if any, value. And the town has demonstrated that themselves with your assessor's revaluation of the property when we contacted her when the last tax bill was due, and we said, hey, why is this still shown as commercial? And she said, ooh, didn't realize that. And we said, what would it be if it weren't commercial? And you're left with $38,900. That's the value of the property as assessed by your own town. So it shows a very significant lowering of the value of the property. And kind of ironically, today my client called me and laughed and said, guess what just showed up? Just got our tax bill, still showing commercial, still showing me owing $12,000. And way back when he had his approvals, he was paying upwards of $30,000 a year in tax revenue. And that's something that's just not going to be available if you rezone the property as residential, and certainly not as land conservation. You are rezoning the property to something that will restrict my client's use of the property to a use to which it's not adapted. Residential doesn't fit here. You do not want residential people coming in and out on Route 9 on driveways, which is what would have to happen. The proposed rezoning is not consistent with the town's comprehensive plan, and the rezoning doesn't take into consideration the prior seeker findings that found that commercial use at this property had no environmental impact and was compatible with the area. Tonight's actions will interfere with my client's reasonable investment back expectations, its reverse spot zoning, and it constitutes regulatory taking of the property. And I would just like to enter into the record a revised letter. I found a numerical error in the letter. I think I put 65,000 square feet and it's actually 85,000. So I've revised the letter and also have a revised petition which shows that the LLC is the owner of the property on the protest petition.
So received.
We thank you very much for your time and consideration of this important matter. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Stephanie. Anyone else? We've also received input from the host committee from Mr. Haight. That's been received and filed. That's been received and filed, right, Jen? Or is it? Or a while ago. Yeah. All right. So that's a public record. If anybody wanted to look at it, you're welcome to look at that. Anything else we've accepted on this matter? Okay. Would anyone else like to speak on this public hearing on this topic? Okay, we'll close the public hearing at 10 after 6. And we will open the next public hearing on the amendment to Chapter 136, Stormwater Management and Erosion and Sediment Control. Would anyone like to be heard on this proposed code amendment? There being no public input, we'll close the public hearing on that matter, and we'll open the public hearing on amending Chapter 167 to add Article XA, Stormwater Control. Would anyone like to be heard in this public hearing on that matter regarding stormwater? Okay, there being no public input on that, we'll close that hearing also, and we'll take a 5-minute adjournment until 6:15 for the next public hearing. We can't start the next public hearing until we've reached that time, so just a few minutes. Fire protection contract. 6:15. I know there's going to be a lot of input on the fire protection contracts and the hydrant agreement with Clifton Park. There being no public comments, we'll adjourn that public hearing, and now we can rise for some. Thank you very much. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. you very much. Okay, first order of business, we have an announcement. We have a new deputy supervisor, and that deputy supervisor is Craig Warner. Craig, thank you so much for accepting this. We really appreciate it. Doesn't come with a whole lot of money, hardly anything, so, and it involves a whole lot of extra work. So, Craig, thank you so much.
Well, I appreciate that extra work, Joe. Thank you very much.
Okay, do we have any other announcements or discussions from town board members in general? Okay, we have the department head reports. Thank you very much. If anyone has any questions on those, or department heads, if you have anything you have to add to your reports, now would be a good time. But they seem very complete to me, at least. Okay, comments or questions from town residents on any matter that you'd like to address to the board? Would anyone like to address the board? Yes, ma'am.
Hello, Diana Northrop. I attended the September meeting regarding the traffic problem on Old Post Road. And I want to thank the individuals who were responsible for setting up the speed indicator. It was in front of my home for about 3 weeks, I believe. And now I'm wondering what the results or conclusions were from that test.
Okay, unfortunately, Woody Sloat, who is the chair of our highway department, is in Maryland, and so he couldn't make it tonight, and so.
Our highway safety.
Highway safety.
I didn't just get the moment.
Okay, so Roger and Leslie, are you aware of what the story is with that?
No, we don't record the data out of this. That's just traffic deterrent. There is data on the science center on Route 9, but we don't get the data out of that portable radar thing.
Okay, so we don't have data from it.
That was my next question. Did it record any of the speeds?
Yeah, I guess.
It doesn't have that capability.
Yeah.
No, it does. It does, but I don't think we know how to do it.
Well, from my observations when I was outside and noticing the signs, they seemed to average 48 to 50 miles an hour, but many were over 50, and I even saw some that registered over 60 miles an hour. And the tractor trailers as well seem to keep up with the cars, so we still have that problem as well.
Yeah, the board has discussed the safety issues on Old Post and on that intersection at exit 13 many times, and so it's definitely on our radar screen.
Well, I noticed the day after the sign was removed, the drivers were back to their old habits of using the speed they normally do. And I'm wondering if there's any consideration as yet as to lowering the speed limit.
The speed, remind me what the speed limit is on that road, Roger?
45.
I'm not sure if we've formally considered, seeking a reduction in the speed limit on that road yet.
That's what Woody's speed is for.
Yeah, and so, and without Woody here, it's kind of hard to address it. Feel free to call Woody if you want, or else come to the next meeting. He's usually at the meetings, so he'll probably be here for the next one. So that'll be our agenda meeting at the end of February. So, and call up and give us a buzz, and we'll put you in touch with Woody, and we can get you a response to that.
Okay. I happened to be at a neighborhood party over the holidays, and the topic came up without my bringing it up, and I know there's many other residents that are unhappy with the situation. And they said they would like to request speed bumps be installed.
Yeah, that won't happen, but there's no reason you can't make a written request. Send it to the supervisor's office and it'll get to Woody's committee's attention. If you and your neighbors want to make a joint request, send it to the supervisor's office and be referred to the committee that they're referred to.
Or they can also make requests individually. Certainly the more the better, the better.
Or signatures, the better.
I think the traffic advisory committee has a particular form that you fill out. It should be on the town website. That you fill out to apply to. That's that? Okay. Okay, well, so Jack can give you a copy of the form, we make an official request to the traffic advisory committee, and then they consider the action.
Thank you for your time.
Thanks very much. We appreciate it. Any other comments, questions from town residents? Kathy?
Yes.
We have newly installed officers and seniors.
Yeah, I don't feel newly installed, I have all the little parts.
Yes, so we do have a new board in the Malta Seniors. We have a lot of new officers that came on board, and we're always looking for members. You only have to be 55 and want to have fun. And if you don't want to have fun, we can change that. We just can't change the age. But thank you again, Darren, for swearing us in. It was great to see so many people. We had 47 on a rainy, snowy day, and we had a 99-year-old at our meeting. So I'm looking for you guys to step that record up, okay? Thank you very much, that's all. Our trips are out, we will know in March what our funding is for those. But again, thank you also to Town Board for funding us. Thank you.
Great work. Thanks, Kathy. Anyone else? All right, we'll move on to old business. The first matter is to adopt 12-term road rezoning. And what I would like to suggest to the board is that we table this for the time being, because I, for one, at least haven't had a chance to digest the legal issues raised in Stephanie's letter and the comments made by Mark and Stephanie here tonight. So I would like more time to look at that and make a determination. So I would suggest tabling this for now, if the board agrees.
I agree, a lot of Stephanie's remarks that are written, that she submitted to us earlier in the day, I think, gave me pause. So,
All right. You all right with that?
I agree to, vote tonight to get it for consideration next month.
Okay, thank you very much. So we'll table that for this evening. The next one is to adopt chapter 136, the stormwater management and erosion sediment control. Second? Discussion? Okay, we've discussed this before, and we've made our opinions pretty clear on it. So do we, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Nay.
I,
Okay, so that's a 3-2 vote agenda. That's carried by a 3-2 vote. The next is to amend chapter 167 and add article XA stormwater control.
So moved.
Second, discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried unanimous. Next is to authorize the fire protection contracts for the fire hydrant agreement with the town of Clifton Park.
So moved.
Second, discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Next, appoint poll inspectors for the district vote, the water district vote coming up on February 4th. And we have at least 2 here. Kathy, you still here? Kathy's here. Barb, you're here, right? Barb, so we have 2 inspectors here tonight. And so this resolution appoints Barb and Kathy and one other as an inspector for that vote on February 4th.
So moved.
Second. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. The next is to authorize the purchase of a roller for the highway department.
So moved.
Second. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. The next is to accept Rogers, the highway superintendent's 2020-284 agreement to specify work in the upcoming year.
So moved. Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. The next is to approve the emergency service agreement. So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. The next is to approve the 2020 engineering and planning services. So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. The next is to approve the GAR Associates agreement to help with our assessor's office.
So moved.
Second. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. The next is to approve a resolution authorizing attendance by Jane Curtis to the Association of Towns Annual Conference.
So moved. Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. The next is to approve the code enforcement conference at Lake Placid for Wayne Hoffman and Greg Berg.
So moved.
Second. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Okay, so we're going to adjourn. Do we have a motion to adjourn the regular meeting and move to the 2020 organizational meeting?
I move that we adjourn to the 2020 organizational meeting.
second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, so we are at the 2020 organizational meeting, and we have a number of resolutions to act on tonight. The first one is to set the town hall hours. Do we have a motion to approve that resolution?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, carried. The next is to authorize the supervisor to execute certain contracts.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, carried. The next is to authorize the supervisor to execute contracts with organizations.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, carried. The next is to appoint the supervisor as a budget officer, and all I have to say on that motion is, thank God for Kevin King. Motion to accept.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
You might have wanted to vote against that one.
That's right. The next is to set the regular meeting date, which will basically be the same as it was in 2019.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
The next is to name the official town newspaper.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
The next is to authorize 2 town newsletters per year, the same as last year.
So moved.
Second. Discussion,
I'd be willing to do more newsletters if they could get a better picture of me.
There's no miracle workers.
Will you
Yeah.
say that one?
It's not that flattering.
all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. The next is to waive the building use fee for the Boston Spa School District and the League of Women Voters.
So moved.
Second. Discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. The next is in regards to the performance of an annual accounting.
So moved. Second.
Discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Next is to approve an investment policy and designate depositories.
So moved.
Discussion? There's a second?
Second.
Second. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. The next is to amend the procurement policy, which is a new standard that's set forth by, in connection, so that we can qualify for federal grant procurement requirements. Is that right, Kevin? So this, and my understanding is that, we follow a lot of these things, pretty much all of them already. Is that accurate, Kevin?
Well, the new section is new regulations for federal procurement. We've already got state procurement guidelines that we do follow in state general municipal law, but this is the second set of requirements. If we were to receive federal monies, we would have to comply with these.
Do we have to comply with these only in respect to the expenditure of federal funds, or they
Yes.
have to be not organization-wide?
No, just federal funds.
Moved resolution.
Second.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. The next one, I believe, is to authorize the highway superintendent to purchase surplus state property.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. The next is to authorize the highway superintendent to purchase equipment.
So moved.
Second. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. The next is to authorize the sale of surplus town equipment.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. The next is to appoint a special town attorney for assessment.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion?
Mr. Supervisor, I'm gonna, because I litigate against Mr. Vincelette, I think it best I recuse myself on the vote.
Okay, Councilman Hartzell recused. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried by 4 vote. Appointment of valuation consultant for assessment matters.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. The next is to adopt the Malta administrative fee matrix, which is connected to the documents. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second? Discussion?
I think just didn't want to bring up here again, this is something that we're gonna need to take a look at with some of our building permit fees. We talked about this at our last meeting for commercial projects. One of the things that jumped out at me in my review of this is that we do have a cap on building permit fees for residential projects vis-a-vis PDDs. And certainly I think the way we have evolved our philosophy around development, it's worthwhile for us to consider making, doing away with the cap on PED building permit fees and instituting one on commercial projects, so we don't have a rerun of the project that we've discussed recently. So I'm not proposing any amendment here, but we've obviously discussed this in our last meeting, and I expect to have a proposal coming forward in the future once Jamie and I have had a chance to do a little bit of homework.
Okay, any other discussion on the fee matrix? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Next is the resolution concerning the Global Foundries confidentiality policy.
So moved.
Second, discussion?
Derek, would we just give this might sound weird to the average person, we'll give a little bit of a description of what this actually authorizes for our team?
Companies, especially high-tech companies, have protected intellectual property interests in lots of their procedures, equipment, designs, et cetera, et cetera. Some of the inspections at Global, necessarily kind of involve looking at those procedures, being aware of the intellectual property, and so that's the reason for a confidentiality policy is when information like that is provided to government actors. And so this motion appoints the people who have access to that information.
One of those things that makes Malta pretty unique. Not everybody has the need to do this sort of thing with a large employer like that. Thank you.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. The next is the appointments to the Board of Health. So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. The next is the appointment of the Registrar of Vital Statistics, Ken Holmes.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Next is the appointment of the Town Controller.
So moved.
Second. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Next is the appointment of the Town Historian.
So moved.
Second. Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? The next is to designate the town stormwater officer.
So moved.
Second. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. The next is to appoint the Americans with Disability Act coordinator.
So moved.
Second. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
The next is to appoint Miller Mannix as town attorney to the planning board. So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
The next is to appoint Miller Mannix as the town attorney to the zoning board.
So moved.
Second. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
The next is to appoint 2 service award committee members.
So moved.
Second. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. The next is the appointments to the zoning board of appeals.
So moved.
Second. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. The next is appointments to the planning board.
So moved.
Second. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
The next is appointment of 2 ad hoc members to the Malta Planning Board.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, this is appointment of the ad hoc members to Stillwater. Planning Board. So we have a motion that it's seconded.
It's both, right?
No, this is designating the two to the Stillwater with regards
It's
to.
But
reciprocal.
And
also
we'll
Stillwater
appoint Carol,
has-
Carol as ours.
Right.
Right. So,
Um,
so that's why.
The content is correct with the.
Right, right. Anyways.
Okay, any other further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. The next is the appointment to the Community Day Committee. So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Carried. The next is the appointment to the Malta Youth Commission.
So moved.
Second. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Next is appointment to the Veterans Committee.
So moved.
Second. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Next is the appointment to the LFTC Community Response Board.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. The next is the appointment to the Union Labor Management Committee.
So moved.
Second?
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. The next is appointments to the Historic Preservation Review Commission.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. The next is the appointment to the Open Space, Agricultural, and Trails Committee.
So moved. Second?
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. The next is the appointment to the Media and Website Committee.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. The next is the appointment of the Boston Area Recreation Representative.
So moved.
Second. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Almost
Next.
there.
Yep. The next is appointment to the Records Advisory Board.
So moved.
Second?
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. The next is appointment to the Community Emergency Response Team.
So moved. Second?
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
The next is appointment to the Emergency Preparedness Committee.
So moved. Second?
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Next is the appointments to the Ethics Committee.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Next is appointments to the Women's Round Lake Society, Library Associate Trustees.
So moved. Second?
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. The next is the appointments to the Malta Economic Development Committee.
So moved.
Second. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. The next is appointment to the Town of Malta Global Foundries Foundation.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. The next is to reappoint the Malta Sewer and Water Feasibility Study Committee.
So moved. Second?
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. The next is to appoint the Town Highway Safety Advisory Committee.
So moved. Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Next is to appoint the Stormwater Management Committee.
So moved. Second?
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. And the last is to appoint the Master Plan Update Committee.
So moved. Second?
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. All right. Do we have we can operate for another year. Do we have a motion to adjourn the organizational meeting and move to the Board of Health meeting?
So moved. Second?
Discussion?
But if I might, just note, it's probably an opportune time to just reflect on the fact that we have a ton of people, unlike town board members who get paid for our time, we have a ton of people who step up and do a lot of volunteer work on behalf of our town government and our community to make Malta the quality community that it is. We're very fortunate and blessed to have all these, I don't know how many people there are, there must be a couple hundred that we just ran through to provide nice quality of life in our town.
And
Certainly.
many that serve on multiple committees, so hoorah.
We are extremely grateful, and that's a good point.
They're very active in town.
All right, do we have a motion to adjourn the organizational meeting and move to the Board of Health meeting?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we will commence the Board of Health meeting. Dr. Buckley. Welcome.
How's our health?
Thank you very much for your patience. I know we've dealt with a few things through the year, and we're very grateful for your expert advice. And I can remember one where we had a possible health concern with a particular house in a particular neighborhood, and you helped us out with that. Thank you very much. Are there any other matters that we should discuss at this hearing?
Not at this hearing. I'm hoping the next couple of weeks to get together with Wayne and the animal control people, and we'll take a look at what some of our problems are going to be going forward as your population increases.
Okay, great. Definitely we should do that. Thank you very much.
Hopefully, we can come up with a coordinated communication plan so we can all deal with it.
Okay, that sounds good. Thank you.
Move we adjourn our Board of Health meeting.
Second?
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
So we're back at the regular meeting. Do we have any other comments from residents to address the board? Okay, I guess we already adjourned the regular meeting, but why don't we do it again?
to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much for coming, everybody, appreciate it.